Hey everyone, it is late at night and I am Norman. So roughly every month or so, a really close friend of mine, the guy that I purchased the vintage Tudor from, and another close friend of mine, my neighbor, and I get together and do a watch lunch. We've done local restaurants, we've also done a trip to the big city to look at watches. We usually just have some food and chat about things, sometimes watches, sometimes not. The last time that we did lunch, however, my friend who sold me the Tudor had a box with him. So his father-in-law was getting rid of some of his old watches. Now, his father-in-law doesn't spend much on watches. So there was nothing fancy in there. There were a couple of Tag Heuers in there, but they're not. However, there was one piece that looked absolutely brilliant and was the perfect colorway for my neighbor. So he took that watch and he's loaned it to me. So tonight we're going to do a review of this National Semiconductor watch. So let us begin. And here is the watch. Just look at that red. That is so cool. And it goes so well with the yellow gold. I like the style of bracelet. And I think the branding here on the clasp is actually pretty fun. There's a ton of micro adjustment, which is perfect. The clasp itself is friction. And it's pressed metal, so it just kind of clicks shut, but it seems to be very well secured. There's a slight taper to the bracelet, and as you can see, the lugs are hidden, so it kind of has almost an integrated bracelet type of look to it. The bezel is pretty subtle, the case shape is cool. And the way it's kind of rounded, it gives it sort of an elegance. So it doesn't just look like a block of metal that was cut into watch shape. The profile on it is pretty thin. Very simple, basic operation. We have one button that you can push for the different modes, and a button that requires a pin for setting. Here is what the case back looks like. And it calls out that the bezel is base metal, so the case itself is. And this case back is stainless steel. There is no mention of any kind of water resistance, so keep this away from water. I haven't seen this particular piece or ones that look like this on eBay, but there are neo-vintage LCD watches that have kind of this aesthetic where they're almost like a standard watch but with an LCD screen in the middle of the dial, quote dial. So if you like this watch, you may be able to track down something similar on eBay. I'll have to look, and if I do find any, I'll feature those in a future video. This watch currently hasn't sprung forward, so it's an hour off. I haven't messed with setting it or anything like that. There is no light on it, so we won't be turning off the studio lights and checking that out. But there are a couple of different modes. So right now it is in time mode. Then there's a date, and it goes back after a few seconds. Then there's a seconds mode. And I don't know how long this will remain in this mode. It may go back to time after a minute or so. I'll have to try that out. But then back to time. And the bracelet here appears to have gotten a bit stuck. So I'll have to work that free. There we go. That's better. Yeah, so that kind of catches there a bit. Have to be careful about folding that down. The bracelet is kind of light feeling, but not too terrible. They've sort of hidden that the links are fold over, but you can see a hint right in the middle there. But yeah, I definitely like the design of this bracelet. Very well done. As for the specifications on this watch, the case size is 35 millimeters, the case height is 10 millimeters, the lug to lug is 40 millimeters. The lug width was kind of difficult to measure, but on my loop it looked like it was 19 millimeters. The crystal on this is not sapphire. I'm guessing it's mineral. Alright, so let me take off my Everest gilt dial. It's been a little while since I've worn this. Such a great watch. Let me take this off and we'll see what the National Semiconductor watch looks like when you're wearing it. And here it is on my 7-inch wrist, 55 millimeters wide. It's a little bit loose on me, but I'm not going to mess with the micro adjustment or anything. We'll just kind of imagine it's a little bit more snug. But look at that. That looks so cool. Yeah, and how it's curved down just makes it look really sleek on your wrist. Kind of gives it the illusion that it's even thinner than it is. And it's really cool that that module actually works. So when my neighbor got this watch, the battery was dead. We had no idea if it was gonna work with a battery in it. And yeah, it does. Sweet. So all in all, I really like this watch. Its aesthetic looks great. That red really elevates the overall look of it. I feel like sometimes this style of LCD watch can kind of look weird just because you have a quote normal watch case and where you would have a dial, but then it's interrupted by an LCD screen that kind of looks out of place. But I feel like with this one, it works. And I think that red helps. The case feels fairly solid. The gold tone is in great shape. The case itself is in really good shape. There's no major scratches or dings on it. The bracelet does feel cheap though. It's kind of light. And yeah, doesn't feel terribly great. However, when I was doing the wrist shot, it wasn't pulling any arm hair or anything like that, so, but I don't know how it'll do when it's tightened up a bit. I'll have to ask my neighbor when he sizes it down just a little bit more. I think it's kind of loose on him as well. But yeah, super cool watch. There you have it, a brilliant looking neo vintage LCD watch that just looks amazing. That red around the display is absolutely brilliant, and this watch looks great on my neighbor's wrist. Thanks for watching.